Good afternoon, sir.
Namaskar. Are you able to hear me? Are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir. Sir, actually, we have connected with the phone, and through that, we will communicate with you.
Okay, that's fine. Or you
Okay.
can chat and doesn't matter. So, should we start? Suneet is there or no?
Sorry for the delay.
Is Suneet there or not? He's not there.
Sir, Suneet sir is in a online meeting, the departmental meeting.
Okay. So, please let me know when you want to start. Okay?
Sir, we can start.
Okay. So, we'll start with the meditation for about 20-25 minutes and then do the discussions. Okay. You're able to hear me properly?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's sit now straight. I hope you remember. We can sit straight, keeping the spinal cord extended to its largest length as far as possible. Then it becomes vertical.
Sorry to interrupt very briefly. नमस्ते सर ऐसा हुआ है ना कि हमारे हेड ऑफ द डिपार्टमेंट प्रोफेसर अविनाश कुमार last Friday he had a heart attack and he passed away. So he was only 46 years old. So there is a condolence meeting of the faculty members at 2:30. तो मैं उसके बाद I will join, sir.
Okay, that's fine. I can understand.
Right, right.
My commiserations.
Right, sir. Thank you. Yes.
Post-COVID, I think many people are passing away suddenly because of heart attack.
And he actually was COVID. He had got infected severely, second phase. His immune system was compromised.
Many young people have died
Ji.
doing exercise while dancing. I don't know.
Ji. Yeah, that's right, sir.
Must be a great shock to the family.
Yes, sir, of course. For us also, but of family, of course, many times more. Ji.
Okay.
I will join in a little bit, sir.
No problem. No problem.
Right.
Okay. Thank you, girls. Sit down. I can sit quietly now. So we sit with a resolve to put aside any thoughts which may come. Sit straight and see if there is any tension anywhere in the body and relax it. And you try to feel the breath. Actually feel the breath through the nostrils or in the chest or in the abdomen, the belly, wherever it is convenient for us. We feel the incoming breath, outgoing breath. And try to keep the mind glued to this process, making note breath is coming in and breath is going out. Many of you are able to feel the breath at the nostril. Kindly raise your hand so that I can know. Okay, thank you. And those of you who are working at the belly or the chest, you can also try to synchronize it with the breath coming in through the nostril. So you can, when you notice the belly expanding, you can also shift attention to the nostril and see whether you can feel the breath coming in. Similarly, when the belly is contracting, you can try to feel the breath going out. So that eventually you can shift the attention to the area around the nostrils. Why I'm saying that? Because the concentration becomes sharp if our area of attention is small. So in the beginning, we start with wherever we can. But as we practice regularly for some time, we try to bring the attention to the small area, which is the area around the nostrils. You can see at the belly, the area on which we can keep attention is very large. So it's quite easy to feel the breath going in, going out. And the area around nostrils, the area is small. So you have to sharpen the focus in that small area and feel the breath. It makes it slightly difficult, but the positive side is that by that the concentration becomes sharp and becomes penetrative. And if you focus the sun rays with a lens, it can burn the glass, it can burn the paper or even wood. So that's the power of focusing onto a small area. Similarly, when you focus attention on a small area, the penetrative nature of the mind increases, becomes very sharp. Since we've been practicing for some time now, I would advise those who are still working on the belly or on the chest to try. This is a matter of practice. You have to train the mind to shift the attention from a large area to a small area. So try it out. I hope you remember when the mind wanders away, what you have to do. Relax and let the attention normally and naturally go back to the breath. Okay? I hope by now you are able to notice the stopping of the breath in between. So pay attention to that also. Breath comes in, stops for a few moments, and then it starts going out, and again it stops for a few moments, and then it starts back in the cycle starts again. And the duration of stoppage of the incoming breath and outgoing breath may be different. Usually it is different. And as the mind calms down, you notice the stoppage time duration keeps on increasing and the respiration rate keeps on falling as the mind becomes more and more calm. So you can How many of you can observe, say, 4 consecutive breaths before the mind wanders away? Can you raise your hands if possible? 4 cycles of respiration consecutively being noticed without mind wandering away. 3 cycles. Okay, thank you. So if the mind is wandering away too frequently, then you should work on slightly hard breathing, conscious, effortful breathing you can do. And then focus attention on the area around nostrils so that you can observe at least a few, 3 or 4 consecutive breaths at a stretch. Okay, so you can do hard breathing, conscious breathing for some time. You can open your eyes now. It's only 25 minutes. You can open your eyes and relax for a few minutes. You can see the screen.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. You can nod and I would nod. So what are we discussing? We have been discussing this, basically the first noble truth. We try to discuss it in its entirety because after mentioning the various usual ways of description of dukkha, the Buddha finally points out, makes this a kind of a looking enigmatic statement. In short, the 5 clinging aggregates are dukkha. So this is what we have been trying to understand. What is this panchupadana khanda dukkha? And I had mentioned this panchupadana means 5 grasping aggregates, the 5 elements by which we recognize the human body. So it's briefly called as 5 sensorial aggregates with which we identify ourselves, or 5 focuses of identity. And what are these? Rupa is the physical form, and then there are the Rupino Khanda, the non-physical aspects, which is the feeling, the perception, the mental or volitional formation, and the consciousness. Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara, and Vijnana. This is what we have been. Then we discussed in detail what is Rupa, what is its constitutive form. It's always material form as experienced by us in terms of the 4 great elements. Then Vijnana is the consciousness, okay, the ability to know the world through the various senses. So we know through eyes, ears, nose, tongue, or the skin, and the mind. And all these 6 different cognitive abilities arise with the contact of senses with their object, and the conditions are appropriate. And vijnanas are conditioned. They're momentary experiences which arise and pass away at a very rapid rate. So the vijnana in psychological terms will be the cognitive aspect of the mind, the knowing aspect of the mind. And for each sense, there is a corresponding object. The eye can see the form or the color. Nose can smell fragrance. Sound, ear can hear sound. Eye cannot hear sound. They're distinct, unique pairs, the object and the sense base. Okay? So we have each sense base as a corresponding object, which is called Aramana in the Pali language. Then we discussed about Vedana, which is the feeling, the affective tone of the experience, which could be pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. And this again happens at each sense door. You can see pleasant objects, unpleasant objects, and neutral objects. We can hear pleasant sounds, which we call as music, unpleasant sound, which usually causes noise, and neutral sound, which are neither belong to neither of the category. And what is pleasant, unpleasant, neutral will obviously differ from people to people. And this, therefore, is the affective part of the mind, which is the noting the tone of the experience. And since feelings arise at each sense door, and they can be of 3 types, we can say 18 different types of feelings. Then we have been discussing sanya, perception, which is the key factor in our interpersonal relationships. It is a factor which assists in cognition because it completes the cognition process. By recognizing the objects, the aramana is recognized, and then based on our memories, based on our conditioning, we have a certain impression about that. Okay, so it is governed by the past memories and the conditions. And then we have been discussing this because it is the most crucial factor in conflicts, in society, in family, at office, at everywhere. So we have been having a elaborate discussion on it, and I had made a presentation on the perception. So till now, what we have done, we try to understand this in greater detail. Perception meaning an interpretation or impression caused by a sense impingement, which is it could be an opinion or a belief about things, about people. The usual notion of perception in modern psychology is that of ability to see, hear, and smell. But here we term that as vijnana. So you must be very careful in interpreting the word perception. So it's better to use the word sanya. Sanya in Hindi, it's called sangya. Okay. So the examples we have been given. Then we had said that we had given certain examples to see how the perception depends on the way we look at things. Say this three-dimensional object, if you look at its reflect image in these two dimensions, on one side you see a rectangle, a square. So if you don't have access to this, the person looking at from here will say it is a rectangular object, and looking at from here will say it is a circular object. And well, the truth is something else. It is a complex truth based on both of them, because we are not having the complete perception. We had seen this and discussed it, and we saw this picture. It's this very special picture made by superimposition. And you can see that depending on where you focus your attention, you can see the girl is dancing either clockwise or anti-clockwise, and that's the kind of illusion which can be created. Then we had seen these pictures. Again, we can interpret them differently depending on how you perceive them. This could be interpreted as a vase or as two people facing each other, and similarly this. And this we know, Rorschach in clock tests, which are used to in psychology to assess the state of mind. And why? Because the perception of about a form, this is basically a form because they are just colors. So the perception about the form will depend upon this mental state. And these are tests are a clear indicator of that. And the perception of the form also depends on the surroundings. And this is a very famous diagram. I don't know whether you're aware of it. What do you think is which of the two orange circles is larger? What do you think? Have a look at that. Which of these orange?
Both are of same size.
Is that what you perceive or is that what you know already? The visual perception gives the deception that this one on left is smaller than right, isn't it? Why it creates that deception? Because it is surrounded by bigger objects. Our idea of small and large is governed by the neighborhood. The left one, it is governed because the neighborhood is of a larger object, so we think it is small. On the right side, neighborhood is a smaller object, we think it is big. And so the mind processes it in that manner. And if you look at it, and if you don't know that they are equal size, really, you will always say this must be bigger than this. So that shows the deceptive nature of our perception, our assessment of our interpretations. Then there is this issue of what's called bias, cognitive bias. You must be aware of that. That people only remember the bits of information that confirm what they have already thought. That influences the way we perceive the external world, whether it is political information, how to invest money, or economics, or science, everywhere. Our preconceived notions, what we call say prejudices, determine how we are going to observe. And these prejudices are an important part of sanya. We hold certain opinions, and therefore, if you notice what are the kind of videos you observe on YouTube and you take a dispassionate analysis, you'll find you try to observe those things which match with your political views. You will not see others. Or how do you decide to invest money? Based on whatever is the conditioning from family, from school, from friends. And how do we scientists conduct research? And why is it so difficult to kind of accept path-breaking research? For example, Einstein's work on relativity was not appreciated immediately. He never got a Nobel Prize for that, which is a groundbreaking research work. He got Nobel Prize for photoelectric effect, which people could understand. And as far as general relativity is concerned, even now, most people find it very funny. And when the relativity was posed for second Nobel Prize, many of the members of the committee felt it looks more like a work of art than work of science. Because of the reason that people are already colored in their perception by what science should be. And a scientific discovery of the kind of general theory that the frames of reference can, the space is curved. That's not what one people can easily understand. And then, of course, there are our desires. It can affect the way we impact and the way we see the visual information. And we have discussed it in terms of the Rashomon effect, which you're aware of. Now, what does it all imply? That different people can view the same situation differently based on their conditioning and more difficult is the state of mind at that particular moment. If I am upset on something else, the world will appear to me in a totally different manner. If I am really very happy, minor unpleasantness I'll ignore. But if I am very upset, even minor unpleasantness will become multiplied and will seem extremely painful. That's one important conclusion from there. Second is that perception is changing. It changes with experience, with more information. You have certain limited experience about certain people, then you form a perception. But when you interact with the person, mostly more, you find that a person who was looking very distant and very cold and non-communicative, when you're able to break that barrier and meet with him and make friends with him or her, you find that the person is extremely affable, is very friendly. So your perception then changes. And in the light of more information, see, 70 years ago, when the Green Revolution was introduced in the country, it was seen as a wonderful thing to do. But as information poured in after 10, 20, 30 years, and the negative effects of it were seen on the soil, on the water level, perception changed that Green Revolution was a disaster. So nowadays, nobody talks of that. It is seen as which was very necessary at that moment, but not to be replicated. No longer seen as a great thing which should be replicated now. Because in the level of more information, the perception has changed. Then as far as our day-to-day activities are concerned, day-to-day interactions in life are concerned, when the mind becomes calm by meditation, you can see the things more clearly. When the mind is agitated, either due to craving, due to excitement, or due to negativity or due to depressive thoughts, our mind cannot perceive the things as they truly are. Because we are not able to see the things in the proper perspective. They get colored by our mental states. And why is it important? Because if we understand it, it gives rise to empathy. I can see that, yeah, earlier I also used to think like this, so if somebody else think on a particular matter in a different manner, I can see, there's a great lack of information, In the last 20, 30 years, our perception of historical figures has changed drastically. In my own perception has changed drastically. Because information has come in last 2-3 decades, which has been kind of iconoclastic. Many people whom we held in great respect, who we thought were really the people who brought us freedom, We no longer think so now. At least many of us don't think so now because more information has come in the last 20 years. So if somebody else differs with my opinion on that, I can empathize. Yeah, I also didn't have the information, so he's also having same issues as I had. And same thing applies, for example, to foods, medicines, the medical systems which you should follow. And you have seen it during COVID, how people had different perceptions about vaccination. There are countries where there are protests, they didn't want to get vaccinated because they thought it was going to harm. And after that, when it became very difficult for people to survive, large deaths were taking place, we also had to succumb. I also was one of those who didn't want to get vaccinated because too much information was available on the on kind of very serious side effects which could be there of vaccination. But when my very dear cousin passed away, then my very good friend passed away after COVID, in the view of that information, I had to change my perception. So, well, even if it is not, some people say so, but I think it'll be better to live in short term rather than worry about the long term effects. Because if you don't survive short term, long term doesn't matter really. So that kind of a logic was used, and he said, okay, we got vaccinated. And I was probably one of those people who got vaccinated very late. Just because of the information. See? And now we've again find that as a result of vaccination, people are having some of them are having very strong effects. You must, as Sunita was mentioning, I am aware of many people who just died like that. Healthy people went to gym, had a heart attack. Some person dancing on the floor and having an heart attack. And people say it's probably because of the vaccinations or the remnant of the COVID. Now, what do you do? The perception have to be formed. Whether I have to do this is a kind of a very major impact on our life, whether to do this or not. And you can see how strong is the value of perception in our life. And you might have seen how much was the conflict during the initial phase of in the 2020 when COVID broke and when 2021 the vaccination came. There's enormous conflict between different groups, at least in the scientific community. I don't know whether you came to know. In our groups, there was a lot of conflict. Some people saying, no, this is bad. We had a Nobel laureate in France putting out videos that this is what's going to happen if you use these mRNA vaccines, which are going to eventually change the genetic character of people. And he had predicted that as a result of this, there will be a series of new variants of virus will come up. And it happened. And he had predicted they will have very long-term side effects. It seems to be happening. But we had no option. Our perceptions were colored by the immediate problems which are arising. So you can see the importance of information, importance of conditioning, importance of state of mind in determining what is right, what is wrong, how should we govern whether this particular object, this particular thing, this particular activity should be done or not done. So it was a very major influence. Sanya, therefore, perception or sanya, how we evaluate things, how we recognize them, what is your views and opinions about them, they matter a lot in our life. And there's a beautiful quote from Yeats who says, the world is full of magic things, patiently waiting for our senses to grow sharper. And I would say our mind to become calmer. As the senses become sharper, mind becomes calmer, which is the result of meditation. Then we can perceive things which normally we can't perceive. We begin to see things which we were not able to see earlier. That's the point of sharpness of the concentration process. It's because of this reason that Buddha pointed out that perception or sanya is like a mirage. I had shown this picture last time also, meaning it is just based on appearances and therefore it can be deceptive. So we recognize that. And we recognize that it doesn't mean we don't have any perception. We have to live in a world and we have to have a perception about various things, various people, various situations. If you have to vote, we have to have perception about political parties. You can't avoid it. You can't say, I don't care. Well, if you don't care, you will vote irrationally. So perceptions have a very important role in our life, whether we are, and we may or may not be right. And they will change with time. So I've got certain videos which will help you to understand it better. So if you have any questions on what we have done till now, you can ask me now. Then we can take these videos and then have a discussion, brief discussion on each one of them. Any questions on? I've repeated quite a bit of what we did last time because of the great importance of this mental factor. And it's very rarely recognized, unfortunately. Even in the meditation circuits, the importance of this is not very well recognized. If you want to say, you can use the phone of your friend, Sonal Bhardwaj, and speak. Or if you want, you can put in chat, whatever you like.
Sir, no questions as of now.
Okay, fine. So we'll have a look at these videos. I hope they will play. Let's see. Are you able to see it?
Yes, sir.
Sir, we cannot hear it. We can see the video, but the audio is not there.
Let me try. Are you able to hear now?
Play, sir, please play it, then we'll get to know.
I just now played it.
Yes, sir, it is audible now. Thank you.
Yeah, it's like a constantly. It's trying and successful. Good. So, what did you make of all this? You related to all that I said before? I can't hear you.
So there is an echo problem from our side.
So तो ज्वाइन करके रखो उसे. Sorry, sir. We don't have our usual microphone and speakers today. So we can't hear you. Just a second. We are fixing the issue. So you are on mute.
There's a chat window here on the Zoom at the bottom. If you put it here, this is what it comes. So on the chat window, you can write. I was interacting with Suneet on the chat earlier. Can you see? Can you do that on your? So you can write down on the chat. Yeah? So it'll work like that. You can write down on the comment. Good. So you'll communicate in writing. I can speak, you can write. So what did you learn from this short video, and how was it related to what we have been discussing? You can form an opinion, no objection. You can discuss among yourself and write down something as a consensus of the group. I'm sharing any other comment you have on this. See, if you see each person on seeing the same photograph, they had a different view of them. And why was that different? Because they had their own mindsets, own perception. Somebody said on looking at one photograph, it shows a powerful mind, a rich person. Another person, it looks like Prince Charles. See the enormous difference you can. Right. Somebody saw another photograph. Somebody said it depicts sexism. Others said it depicts convention, traditionality. See? And then when they see their own photograph, they have a different opinion about themselves. Isn't it? So the conditionality of perception is a very simple experiment done by some people to show that how fragile and unreliable our perceptions can be. Now this here, it seems it's a video for sake of education or some such thing. But imagine same thing happening in our life. You have a family member and two people in the family have a totally different perception about him or her. You have a certain opinion about a relative, and your brother has some other opinion about the relative, and you can come to strong disagreements, and it can spoil your relationships on that basis if you're not able to see the conditionality of that perception. And that's how conflicts happen. Which food is better? Such a simple thing as that can result in conflict between husband and wife. Which political party is better? People have come to killed each other on that account, leave aside simple things. Friends have fallen apart and become enemies because they had different opinions about a politician. So it's a very strong aspect of our mind which assists our cognition, and we on that basis it affects our perception, affects our feelings. Supposing a tiger was to enter into your room, how will you feel? All of you will be frightened, isn't it? You won't have pleasant feelings, you'll have unpleasant feelings. Can you imagine a young couple going to a forest and seeing a lion running towards them and feeling happy and embracing it? Can you imagine that? Yeah, but there is a video which is available of that. There is a film which was made on a young couple who had reared a lion cub, and it soon became very big, and they had to drop in the cub in the African forest. It was called Born Free. I don't know if you've known about it. And after 1 year, they just want to see whether that domestic lion could survive the forest or not. So they go after 1 year to see whether that lion is all around there or not. And along with them is the caretaker of the safari, and he says, okay, we'll see. And after hours, they ultimately locate the lion, and the lion is able to recognize them, and he comes running and hugs them. And it's astounding visuals you have of that kind. The videos available on the YouTube. Yeah, there's a story you're mentioning. I'm talking of a real life incident. That tiger was called Christian. I think that's the name of that small video. Let me see if I can locate it for you. It wasn't planned, but I can locate it maybe, or you can see it later because it will take some time for me to locate it. Let me try. Okay, let me try it. That's the power of perception. They have a different perception of that particular type of that lion. And the lion has a certain perception of those two people. He remembers that when I was a small child, they had reared me up. Otherwise, if you find some lion running towards you, you won't stand there. Okay. I'll show you some more videos in which they're not educative as such. They have a different purpose, to show you how you can get deceived by part of the information about drawing conclusions, and then suddenly the conclusion will change because perception will change in the light of additional information. In these, the sound will not be important, so it doesn't matter if you can't feel. Sorry, it's just an ad. Can't avoid it. So, did you notice change in the mind states, how it happens? What you thought till that time, before the last frame, was something else. And then suddenly the thief changed. That's the another example of it. How the perceptions get changed by more information. There's another short film, which I think is very extremely moving. It should show you how perceptions can change just with one incident.
Sir, so we cannot see the video if you are showing us any video.
You can't see? Oh, I don't know how let me just see. I'll do it again.
No, sir, we couldn't see the video.
I'll do it again. Something happened there. Can you see it now?
Yes, sir, now we can see it.
Okay. He was speaking in Iranian, so you may not have understood the words, but I don't think they matter. So, what did we learn? Does it indicate to you how perceptions play an important role in our life? I hope. Now, if you have any question, you can ask. We can have some discussion. You can put it down in your chat if you like. You're handicapped today. But write out again if you can with the, maybe for a change the mic works. Is the laptop microphone on? You can just put the laptop microphone off. If it is on, then the echo must be happening. So if you put the laptop microphone off, then probably the phone will not give echo. Just check up. Now we can, I can see this is off. So try it out now. Sonal Bharadwaj, can you try it out with your phone? You can speak if possible.
Yes, sir.
Okay. No. Don't connect that also. Again, the echo will come.
Sir, we have disconnected the audio from the system, and like we are just communicating through the phone only.
Yeah, that's good. So now I can hear you. No echo. Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
So, what are your comments on the 3 videos we see? What did we learn? And what is it, the importance of perception? How do they form? How do they change?
So we learned that every person's perception is formed due to because of their own previous experiences or some own prejudices that they might be having in their own mind. So we should not assume that our perception is the only and the ultimate truth, but we should try to understand the other person's point of view also, and give them some benefit of doubt sometimes, that if we don't know everything doesn't mean that, like, if we know something doesn't mean that that is everything, and try to listen to other persons as well.
And also, sir, the perceptions that we have, they are very surface. Like it requires us to go a bit deeper. So in the last video when I saw it, so in the first sense, when we see the kid coming late, so the perception that forms in my mind is that the child is late, and like there would be a number of reasons, or the child is not disciplined. But when we look at the deeper story, so then we get to know why the child is late, and then we see that the judgments that we form on a very first basis, how erroneous they are.
Now you can extrapolate it to your own life and see when we have interactions with people with different life conditions, how we quickly tend to judge them and then never try to find out. So if some person is behaving in a very odd manner, we tend to form an opinion that he is not a good person or whatever, not a good opinion about him or her. But maybe there's something working in his or her life which is really troubling her so much that she can't really behave in a normal manner. This happens in family, this happens in office, this can happen in friends. So the ability to see the perception as unreliable gives rise to empathy. It's a very important quality for good making us good human beings. We can empathize with people But empathizing with people who are poor is comparatively easy. But empathizing with people who are ill-behaved is very difficult. But a person may be ill-behaved because of certain family situations, his personal situations, so many reasons. And when people become old and become ill and suffer from dementia, I don't know, you may or may not have encountered a person I have encountered in our family, and elderly lady, very close, who got into dementia towards the last 7 years of her life. So what it means when you're somebody who's very dear to you is behaving in absolutely ridiculous manner, not recognizing you, abusing you, shouting at you. If somebody was to see without knowing the background, he would say, how are you tolerating this old lady who's shouting and abusing you? But if you know that she's suffering from illness, then the perception would change and the response would change. And of course, the culture, the conditioning, the kind of training a person has gone through in his family, in his schooling, friend, that matters a lot. A practical example of it, which I think you may relate to easily, would be, okay, I think I need to do screen sharing. Okay. Can you see the screen now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And this is a problem which you may or may not have faced till now, but surely someday you'll face. When a young man and a woman meet and decide to marry, why do these conflicts arise? One of the very common reasons is that the wife and the husband have their own perceptions of what a spouse should be. And how does the perception form? Based on his or her parents. So how my father used to behave with my wife, with my mother, I would think that's how a husband should behave with a wife, with his wife. Similarly, my wife must have formed an opinion how husband should behave with his wife based on her father and mother, or somebody, people in the family, in their family before marriage. And when two people from different backgrounds marry, they both believe that this is how it should be. Man believes the wife should be like that, as my mother used to behave with my husband, with my father. And the woman would believe husband should be just as my father used to behave with my mother. And they could be drastically different. And enormous conflicts occur. And I've seen it happen in my family. I'm old enough to have seen our nephews and nieces and children and get into trouble. So many divorces have happened in my acquaintances, in my friends, relatives, just because of this reason. Just because of difference of perception. Two people in the same profession, marrying each other, knowing each other well, having worked together, and then getting into conflict because wife thinks she's a better professional, husband thinks he's better, and they can't just digest it and digest that. Same thing happens in a group effort. One member of the group feels he's contributing more, other feels he's contributing less. You have trouble. You have perceptual differences, it can lead to splintering of the group. So there's this video in Hindi. It's from a serial which I was told by my wife comes in some TV channel. So if you have seen it, just don't predict what is going to happen to the other friends. Just have a look at it and see what is your perception of what should happen in a conflicting situation between husband and wife and what actually happens there. So I hope you can listen. Are you able to listen?
No, sir.
Listen. Can you see the video or no?
No, sir. Sir, video we can see, but we cannot hear the audio.
नहीं आप अभी क्या अभी यहाँ पे हैं?
So now we can hear.
We'll start again then.
So we cannot hear the audio. I think there's some issue. Sir, we are finding this video on YouTube and we'll share it on the Meet. I think then it will be audible.
Okay. So you can see it on your own, can you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, see it on your own and then we can have a discussion. Here's the link.
Sir, we cannot share the screen. Please give us the permission to do so.
I'm saying, you see, you said you can see the video on your own laptop?
Yes, sir. Okay, we'll see it that way then.
Yeah, that's what I said. I thought you were already doing it.
Yes, sir. We just started it. Yes, we'll just see it.
If it is not working like that, you can do it.
Sir?
So,
Yes, watch the video. Yes, sir.
did you expect the mother of the girl to respond in that manner?
Sir, not initially, but yes, later on when things took turn and seeing her facial expressions, so then yes. And Sir Simran adds that
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, sir. I was just saying when she was saying about the mother's facial expression when she was smirking at the guy, and she was like, I know where you are getting at. And then when I'll say, then you'll know something.
So you can see how a difficult situation can be responded in variety of ways, isn't it? Depending on how your perception is of what should be the relationship between husband and wife. Different people have different relationship. You can see the perception of the man, young man is different, perception of the wife is different, and perception of the mother is much more different. And the man must have learned a good lesson. So the importance of understanding the perception of each other and harmonizing them rather than creating a conflict, I think is amply indicated in that video. If the man is also has empathy, has understood that this perception of mine is not right, and that all perceptions are mirages, they are based on appearances, they are based on conditioning, not there's nothing absolutely right about them, probably this situation would not arise. So that is the importance of understanding the conditioned nature of perception. So let me complete now that. So that's how the perceptions form. And now you can examine, have a look at your own perceptions about people based on clothes, presence or absence of beard, cap they wear, color of the skin, food they eat. And then you can examine when and how did this perception form? Is it always right? And then the question arises, is that all the perceptions are relative? Then how do we live? Or is it that, well, at them where if you understand that our perceptions are tentative, they need not be right. But yeah, for the living day-to-day life, I have to have a perception based on whatever information I have. But if somebody has different perception about certain things, I have the ability to understand, yeah, maybe he has a different conditioning, he has a different point of view. And that's how empathy develops. That's how we learn from each other. So that is about the relativity of perception. But the question also which I'm asking is more difficult is there no absolutely right perception? What do you think? Is there any perception which you can say is universally true? Nothing, no conditions would change it. Anybody can say any such thing?
So I don't think we can say a such thing that any perception can be fully correct. After a point of time, conditions will change and perception is bound to change due to differing conditions. Even the Newton's law don't even apply, right? Which they are basically the laws of physics. They were considered as natural laws, but after a point, for example, the relativity theory itself or the law of gravity also stops working after a point. So that is what Einstein talked about.
Okay, good. That's fine. That's one way of looking at it. But I can say for sure that Buddha doesn't answer it like this. He says, yeah, there are many perceptions that are absolutely right. You can't question them because they have been right since times immemorial and they'll be right till times immemorial. All times to come in future, and they have been right all times in the past. Just imagine what could it be? I'll leave it at that. I think it will be good for you to think about it, okay? think, is there anything, any perception about the world outside, about our experiences, about things, which you can say is always true, of course. I've already hinted at it during the past discussions, but probably you didn't catch it. So think about it. And then when we meet next time, we'll explore it further. Okay? If you have any questions to ask, you can do it now. You can spend a few minutes. Are you able to realize the importance of this mental factor of perception? How important it is in our day-to-day life, professional life, family life, everywhere. And it is a kind of conditioning which happens throughout the life, keeps on happening. And in the light of knowledge, it changes, as was pointed out about laws of physics, for example. But there are some laws which are eternal.
So, but are these laws are based on perception? The laws which are eternal, they might just be the experience or the pure way of knowing. Can they also be treated as experience or like perception?
Think about it. Yeah, of course there are perceptions, but that's what is that perception which is absolutely right is essentially called wisdom. That's how we move from the perception to wisdom. It's called right understanding. This is the perception which we talk of normally is the understanding based on appearances. But there is some understanding based on the intrinsic nature of phenomena. Think about it. You're all psychology students, so you should be able to figure out some things. I did mention in the passing some characteristics of various experiences, but look at it more carefully. So we're spending so much time on perception because of the great importance of it in conflicts. One of the important things, if you become a clinical psychologist, would be to hear conflict stories of people. Family counselors, marriage counselors, or the international what should I say, interlocutors who create groups of conflict between countries, conflict between societies. They have to have that understanding that the 99.9% of the conflicts are because of a difference of perception. There's nothing fundamentally right with them. Because the really right perceptions, nobody is able to appreciate the value of that. And that's what the contribution of the Buddhas are, contribution of an enlightened person is. To point out this is what is truth, and everything else is an appearance.
So there was a part where it was when mind becomes calm, the truths become obvious.
Yeah, but it said the perceptions change. And it's a different people can view the same situation differently based on conditioning. Now, this to be able to see and appreciate even that is so difficult, you see. You always think that what I think about this person or this thing or this food or this relationship is correct. What you think is wrong. All of us have strong belief about rightness of our perception. We don't recognize its conditionality. This itself is a very big breakthrough if we can recognize the conditionality of our perception and assume and be agree fully that it is a tentative thing. It's not something which is worth holding on to. It's tentative. Based on my current knowledge, based on my current level of understanding, the level of conditioning I have gone through, this is my correct perception. This politician is right. That's my correct perception. Somebody else says no. He's not a good person. You don't have to get into fight with him. You have to find, okay, tell me, what is the reason? Why do you think? So he may say, give some information. You can give some information. And then if both of you are sensible people, then you can have an interaction, you can discuss and come to some conclusion. And there are very good examples of conflicts between societies resolved in that manner. I don't know if you have heard about Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa. Have you heard about that? What happened there? Can anybody explain? In brief, you can just say overall perspective if you have anybody. What happened there? What did that commission do and what was its objective? No? Anybody getting ready to answer or no? Mic is again not working.
So we don't know about it. I was just saying yes.
Okay. Since you firstly said yes, I thought maybe somebody will speak. You see, when the apartheid regime ended and the new government headed by Nelson Mandela was formed in South Africa, the society was absolutely divided between the majority blacks and the minority whites who had ruled. And the whites had apparently committed quite a bit of atrocities. So there was a very big possibility of a massive retaliation and revenge taking place. And seeing that incipience of that kind of a situation, Nelson Mandela, the wise man as he was, he set up came to be known as Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And his friend Desmond Tutu was made the chairman of that commission. There were some 10, 12 people, I don't remember how many, different leaders of societies, of both whites and blacks. And the purpose of it was to record from both whites and blacks, because some whites had also suffered. So they said, you tell us what have you gone through, and we'll record it. We'll give you an opportunity of catharsis. And if you tell us in advance, I'll say you have a grievance against some person, that person will be located and brought before you. He'll be made to hear what you say. And then if he wants, he can respond or say sorry or seek forgiveness. And then you can decide what you want to do. So I think more than 20,000 such cases were recorded live. Some of them are available on videos. Women coming and telling they murdered my husband, murdered my son, and this is what they done, and this is the person who did it and all. And that person is sitting and listening. And sometimes some of the persons express their regret and sought forgiveness. And the great wonder was sometimes those women did forgive. That it happened because of the prevailing atmosphere. So a situation which could explode into violent communal clashes completely diffused by this process of looking at each other's perception and forgiveness. It doesn't mean that those whose crimes are unidentified would be spared by the law. The law will take its own course. But the process of forgiveness healed the wounds of the people who are oppressed. And so it didn't explode into a communal violence as could have been expected, as happened, for example, in India at the time of partition. That's it. An astounding example of how forgiveness coupled with appreciating the perceptions of each other can bring about transformation, prevent catastrophes. And this model has been adopted later by some other countries also to bring about healing between communities. Because most of the time, different communities have different perceptions of each other. There was an experiment of similar kind between Israel and Palestine, done under it was initiated by a Buddhist monk by the name of Thich Nhat Hanh. I don't know if you have heard about him. Passed away last year. He's a Vietnamese monk settled in Paris, in France. And he used to conduct meditation classes, and sometimes the Palestinians would come, sometimes Israelis would come, and sometimes both would come. So after having practiced for quite some time, once he asked those Israelis and Palestinians to sit across after the retreat and talk to each other about their perception of each other. So Israelis blamed Palestinians, Palestinians blamed Israelis. This is what you have done to us. And they said, this is what you have done to us. And he said, my son has died. And Israeli also said, my son has also died. And suddenly they realized that it's not that any side has escaped the horrors of the war, horrors of the conflict. So then a group got formed. It's called Mothers in Yes. Let's hop that. I don't remember the name. There's an organization formed of the mothers of Israeli and Palestinian women, of young men who had lost their lives in the conflict. And those mothers formed an association, and the process of that healed up the wounds in between them, because each of them could say, this is what happened to me, this is what Israeli soldiers did to my son, and they would say, this is what Palestinian whatever they call them, soldier or terrorist, whatever they did to us. And they could recognize each other's suffering. And through those mothers, the process of healing was done at some level. But unfortunately, after Yasser Arafat passed away and the more hardliners came, the dialogue probably didn't survive. But it had continued for a long time. They got a good recognition worldwide of that effort of peace. And Israelis started visiting Palestine, Palestinians started coming to Israel and then trying to see the situation. Some healing at least happened, some little healing happened. So that there could be a pressure group in Israel of advocating peace, pressure group in Palestine advocating peace. And you can see it's a hundreds of years of a kind of conflict between two communities based on hardened perception. I am right, you're wrong. And then if that breaks, that perception broke through those brave mothers, and slowly some semblance of a reduction in conflict took place. You might have noticed that as long as towards the later part of life of Yasser Arafat, when he was chairman of the Palestine, things between the two countries had started looking up, and they got both of the Israeli and the Yasser Arafat, who was the president, I don't remember, both of them got Nobel Peace Prize for creating those conditions. So it's once you recognize that the way I think about others, they also think about me the same thing, and they have valid reasons, I also have valid reasons, that strong antipathy, strong hatred for each other automatically melts down in the light of the understanding. So that's the power of perception. Okay, so I think I'll stop now. It's already 4:50. Okay, then see you later. Goodbye. Namaste.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.